Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Israeli forces killed at least 115 Palestinians Sunday, including 92 people who died while seeking aid. In the deadliest attack, Israeli troops massacred at least 79 people at the Zikim crossing in northern Gaza, where Palestinians gathered to wait for 25 aid trucks from the UN World Food Program. In a statement, the UN agency said, quote, as the convoy approached, the surrounding crowd came under fire from Israeli tanks, snipers, and other gunfire, unquote. The head of Al-Shifa Hospital in Gaza City said the facility was overwhelmed with victims shot by Israel.
Now Al-Shifa Hospital is full of martyrs and wounded. The situation is catastrophic. We can no longer handle the influx of injuries, so we have started directing patients to other field hospitals. The situation is extremely bad and disastrous. There are so many dead and wounded, and we simply cannot treat them all. The Israeli army is targeting anyone heading to get food in the Zakim area. People are starving. Signs of malnutrition are starting to appear.
Dr. Hassan Al-Sher is head of Shifa Hospital. The attack came as the World Food Program warned Gaza's hunger crisis have reached new levels of desperation. Gaza's health ministry says at least 19 people have starved to death over the past day, including a 35-day-old infant and a 3-month-old baby named Yahya al-Najjar. This is Yahya's Uncle Anan.
He died due to malnutrition and the unavailability of baby formula at the Gaza Strip. We urge the entire world, all Arab countries, and everyone with a living consciousness, humanity, and dignity to just stand with the children, just to let baby formula get into the Gaza Strip.
In other news from Gaza, Israel's launched a ground and air assault on the city of Deir al-Balah, where thousands of displaced Palestinians have been sheltering. On Sunday, Pope Leo called for an end to what he called the barbarity of war after Israel bombed the only Catholic church in Gaza last week, killing at least 3 people and injuring several others, including the parish priest. Pope Leo spoke at the Vatican.
This act sadly adds to the ongoing military attacks against the civilian population and places of worship in Gaza. Once again, I call for an immediate end to the barbarity of war. I appeal to the international community to observe humanitarian law and respect the obligation to protect civilians, as well as the prohibition of collective punishment, of indiscriminate use of force, and forced displacement of the population.
In Britain, the police have arrested another 100 people for expressing support for the group Palestine Action, which was recently banned under Britain's Terrorism Act. Across Britain, demonstrators held signs reading, quote, I oppose genocide, I support Palestine Action, unquote. Meanwhile, the Freedom Flotilla coalition ship, the Handala, has begun its final leg to Gaza. The ship set sail from southern Italy Sunday with the aim of breaking the Israeli blockade on Gaza. The Syrian government announced another ceasefire deal on Saturday between Bedouin and Druze groups in the southern province of Sweda. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights says over 1,000 people have died in recent fighting in Sweda. Israel backed the Druze by launching multiple attacks on Syria last week. In a surprising prisoner swap, more than 250 Venezuelan immigrants were released from El Salvador's mega prison Secat in exchange for 10 Americans and U.S. permanent residents who were in Venezuelan custody. The 3-country deal comes over 3 months after the Trump administration rounded up the Venezuelan immigrants and sent them to El Salvador without due process, even though many of them had open asylum cases in the U.S. Among those freed in the exchange is Andrea Hernandez Romero, a 33-year-old gay makeup artist who was wrongfully accused of being a gang member by the Trump administration over 2 crown tattoos he has on each arm, with the words Mom and Dad. The freed Americans include 37-year-old Lucas Hunter, who'd been in Venezuelan custody since late last year. This comes as advocates in El Salvador continue to demand the release of tens of thousands of Salvadorans detained at Secat and other prisons without access to due process under President Nayib Bukele's so-called state of emergency. Many have been tortured in police custody. People held in a Miami immigration jail describe being shackled with their hands tied behind their backs and forced to kneel to eat from styrofoam plates on the floor like dogs. That's according to testimonies in a new Human Rights Watch report published today detailing abusive conditions at the Chrome Jail and 2 other detention facilities in Florida operated by ICE. The report also says officers have denied detainees critical medication and held some of them incommunicado and solitary confinement as an apparent punishment for seeking mental health care. Detained immigrants were also routinely denied access to legal counsel. In more immigration news, an 82-year-old grandfather from Pennsylvania was quietly deported to Guatemala after he was apprehended during a visit to an ICE office to replace his lost green card. Luis Leon lived in the U.S. for nearly 40 years. He was granted political asylum in the U.S. in 1987 after surviving torture under the military regime of the Chilean U.S.-backed dictator Augusto Pinochet. His family says they were initially told he was dead, then learned he was in a hospital in Guatemala, a country he has no connection to. Guatemala is one of nearly a dozen countries that has an agreement with the Trump administration to receive deported immigrants of other nationalities. Related news here in New York, a 19-year-old high school student has reunited with his family after ICE agents arrested him in June at his asylum hearing. Derlis Chusan is from Ecuador and has been living with his relatives in Queens. This is a member of the legal team, Melissa Chua of New York Legal Assistance Group.
We are so excited to welcome Derlis home. He was taken a month ago in immigration detention, violently taken from his family, held at 26 Federal Plaza for many days in horrible conditions, and then transported to Texas, far away from his family, community, friends, and school. And you can see how much they've missed him because we have a number of supporters from his home, from his community, from his school here with him, waiting for him today.
Another New York high school student, only identified as Dylan, remains in ICE custody since being taken by federal agents at a routine immigration hearing in May. Dylan's a 20-year-old asylum seeker from Venezuela. In Georgia, prosecutors have dropped all charges against the prominent Spanish-language journalist Mario Guevara, but he still faces deportation and remains jailed at an ICE detention center in Folkestone. Guevara was arrested while covering No Kings demonstrations in June. He's lived in the United States for some 20 years and has built a large following for his reporting on anti-ICE protests. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem lashed out at journalists during a press briefing in Nashville, Tennessee, Friday, denying widespread evidence that ICE agents are racially profiling people. The reporter is heard saying, quote, ICE operations are taking place predominantly in Latino communities before being interrupted by Noem.
My audience is predominantly Latino, so they kind of every day say they're fearful because a lot of people have been targeted based on their skin color, not necessarily.
That is not true. And so that has been another false narrative that has been put out there in the media that I absolutely want to throw back at you and say that is absolutely false, and don't you dare ever say that again.
The Democratic Republic of Congo and rebel forces have agreed to a declaration of principles aimed at ending the conflict in eastern Congo. A final peace deal with the Rwanda-backed M23 is set to be signed in August. Negotiations have been brokered by the U.S. and Qatar. Rwanda has been accused of supporting M23, which has seized major portions of the eastern DRC, including the cities of Goma and Bukavu, killing thousands of people and displacing hundreds of thousands more since January. Police in Brazil raided the home and political headquarters of former far-right President Jair Bolsonaro Friday. Brazil's Supreme Court also ordered Bolsonaro to wear an electronic ankle monitor, citing fears he may flee the country amidst his trial for plotting a coup to stay in power. Brazilian authorities also accused Bolsonaro of working with the United States to impose sanctions on Brazil after President Trump threatened to slap a 50% tariff on Brazil over the prosecution of Bolsonaro. On Friday, the Trump administration escalated its attacks on Brazil by revoking visas for 8 of Brazil's 11 Supreme Court justices. In the United States, the Environmental Protection Agency has announced it'll shut down its scientific research arm. The move has sparked widespread backlash from public health experts and climate advocates who've warned this could lead to the dismantling of protections that shield communities from hazardous chemicals, water contaminants, and toxic pollution. Gretchen Goldman, president of the Union of Concerned Scientists, said in a statement, quote, "The nation enjoys a cleaner environment thanks to the decades of high-quality research coming out of this office. Our nation cannot let this stand," unquote. This comes as the EPA is also seeking to delay monitoring and cleanup requirements for toxic coal ash, allowing coal plants to stall cleanup beyond the year 2030. President Trump's threatening to block a new stadium deal for the Washington Commanders football team unless the team restores its old name, the Washington Redskins. Trump also called for the Cleveland Guardians baseball team to resume using its old name, the Cleveland Indians. Both teams had changed their names following years of protests by Native American groups and their allies. In a major victory for cryptocurrency industry, President Trump signed the first federal legislation to regulate stablecoins. The group Consumer Reports criticized the legislation, saying it fails to protect consumers and the economy from the risks posed by these digital assets. President Trump has filed a $10 billion libel lawsuit against Rupert Murdoch, the Wall Street Journal's parent company, Dow Jones, and 2 reporters, after the Wall Street Journal reported Trump had contributed a sketch drawing of a naked woman to a birthday album for serial sex trafficker and rapist Jeffrey Epstein's 50th birthday. CNN's described the lawsuit as a, quote, extraordinary escalation of Trump's ongoing legal campaign against the media companies he views as opponents, unquote. Trump's close ties to Jeffrey Epstein are coming under increasing scrutiny as demands grow for the Trump administration to release files on Epstein, who died in prison in 2019. Especially strong are the demands by the MAGA base. Over the weekend, the New York Times revealed a former Epstein employee told the FBI in 1996 about a troubling encounter with Trump in Epstein's New York office. In other media news, the Writers Guild of America is urging New York officials to investigate Paramount's decision to cancel Stephen Colbert's late-night show on CBS. Colbert's show was canceled just days after he called out Paramount for agreeing to pay President Trump $16 million to settle Trump's lawsuit against CBS's 60 Minutes. In a statement, the Writers Guild said, quote, given Paramount's recent capitulation to President Trump in the CBS News lawsuit, the Writers Guild of America has significant concerns that the Late Show's cancellation is a bribe, sacrificing free speech to curry favor with the Trump administration as the company looks for merger approval, unquote. And in news from Minnesota, the Minneapolis Democratic Farmer Labor Party has endorsed Democratic Socialist State Senator Omar Fatah for mayor over 2-term incumbent Mayor Jacob Fry, who plans to run for re-election. Fatah is the first Somali American and the first Muslim to serve in the Minnesota Senate. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And for more of our audience-supported journalism, go to democracynow.org, where you can download our news app, sign up for our newsletter, subscribe to the daily podcast, and so much more.